Hello, welcome back. It is week 39 on Out on That Line, and man, I'm feeling fine. I'm Geoff, and back this week he was only gone 1 week, but it felt like a dozen. We have my co-host, Alex. Alex, how was that space journey you were on, my friend?
I tell you what, I had me a grand old time. Shout out to the people of North Carolina for your hospitality, your availability of Chick-fil-A everywhere you look, and the fact that you sell the sauce in stores in a giant squeeze bottle. I'm grateful for that way of life, I think, and I learned a lot about myself down there.
Yes, and I mean, what better time to give free advertising to Chick-fil-A than Pride Month? So
yeah, exactly.
Good one. Yeah, cool.
Absolutely. No, they turned
yes,
themselves around. They've got. I think they did a complete face turn, and they're like donating to LGBTQ causes now. You can fact check me on that, but they definitely stopped giving it to Can't Pray the Gay Away.
Well, I will tell you, I will not be fact-checking you on that because that sounds like some effort, but someone is welcome to, and I trust in my colleague here that's now the case.
Yeah,
so
trust me, I was one of the
on your search.
I was one of the main holdouts on homophobe chicken, and as soon as someone was like, green light, they stopped being assholes. I was like, well, let's try that sauce.
Well, this changes everything.
Yeah. Watch, I've just damned
day.
your soul. You go out and buy it, and I'm like, Geoff, you didn't eat the sauce yet, did you? I was wrong, Geoff. I was so wrong.
Going to hell for eating Chick-fil-A and believing liars.
Wow.
That's what I get. Well, we have a big week this week. This is a big one for you to come back on, as if your absence was extended or something. But it feels like this is a great homecoming. This week, if you haven't heard of it yet, get out from underneath that rock you're living under, because Olivia Rodrigo dropped her debut album called Sour. And boy, howdy, is it a doozy. So we listened to that one this week, and I think we each listened to it quite a lot. This is a big day, a big week on the pod. New frontiers getting broached here on Out on That Line.
Absolutely. In my opinion, Geoff, sour is pretty sweet.
God damn. Oh, did you spend your whole 2-week break thinking of that?
100% notebooks, push it to the limit, just trying to figure out how do I do this?
Well, it landed. It landed as smoothly as a helicopter in Vietnam.
I'll take it. Done.
Good. You can take that how you will. Oh, well, you also mentioned that you had something you wanted to talk about first.
Yes. It's been a long time. It's been a long time since we've had one of our favorite segments on this show. We haven't had a good mea culpa in a really long time.
Oh, let's have it.
Now, I understand that this is coming on the heels of my 1-hour rolling pig orgasm that I had over St. Vincent, Daddy's home, last time you and I did an episode.
I feel like I know where this is going.
But you called it, Geoff. From your lips to God's ears. I have to amend my statement, and I think no longer is St. Vincent the album to beat for me for Album of the Year. I'm upgrading Sour to that level.
Wow. So, okay. I mean, I guess we'll probably get into it when we really talk about the album, but is there a reason for that? Like, what brought you to this epiphany?
Here's the thing. You could listen to this album and go, she's not really doing anything new musically, right? It's not like a paradigm shift in sound, but it's a paradigm shift, in my eyes anyway, in the industry and what's possible and what you can give the consumer. Because there's this common misconception especially like bitter people that want to be in music and haven't broken in. Oh, well, it's just like audiences have gotten so stupid and all they want is Marvel slop and they don't want to engage their brains. They just want plop. It's like, no, consumers will respond to something interesting and new and good. You just have to give it to them. If you want to blame somebody, blame the people that make these decisions, that produce these things, because the consumer is intelligent. The producer is usually like, as a 55-year-old man, I know 2 things to be true about children. They love to hit the dab, and they love to floss. What about a series called TikTok Academy? Greenlight it now. They're not they have like a macroscopic understanding of what's popular, what's going on with the youngest generation who are going to spend their parents' money, or if they've got their own, spend their money. Like, that's all they care about is product, not personality. So what is a proven moneymaker? We'll do that. Sorry to slam her again, but the BB Rexa album came off that way. The difference for me, and why I think this album is a bombshell in terms of the fact that an 18-year-old made this, is you can look at something like BB Rexa where I feel like she said to herself, what do people want to hear? Whereas Olivia Rodrigo said to herself, what do I have to say? And that makes all the difference for this album for me. And I think it's going to embolden a lot of people, especially you've got like Billie Eilish is at the tip of this spear as well. Again, the only one I could see unseating Sour at this point for my album of the year. I just think there is kind of like a shift in consciousness coming with mainstream popular music, and it's being led by these like 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds and like genuine stars. Like, we watched Olivia Rodrigo. She's a fucking star. It happened overnight, and we witnessed it, and it's like, this is a big fucking deal.
Yes, and when have we ever had, somebody of a more advanced age, kind of be a groundbreaking artist? When's the last time that's ever happened? Can you think of any?
Susan Boyle.
Well, I mean, you had to find the only example that totally shatters my point here. But, think about it. The Beatles came out. They were all in their like early 20s. The Rolling Stones came out. Same thing. Jimi Hendrix came out. He was 27 when he died, so he never even got to an advanced age. All these people, Madonna, early 20s. Britney Spears, 16 years old. All these people that have been like the kind of touchstones of every kind of generation's music. And, obviously there's other artists out there. If you didn't like Britney Spears, I'm not saying that she was like the most important thing in your life. But my point is, all this, anytime we've got a big shift, a big star, it's never a 45-year-old or even a 35-year-old. People can be big stars when they are that age, but it's because they started out when they were like in their late teens, early 20s. Like, the big advances and the big groundbreaking moments in music have all come from people that are pretty young. I mean, look at like Buddy Holly was early 20s when he started playing like the white people rock and roll that totally launched the careers of tons and tons of people. It's just like, look at Chuck Berry, was young when he came up with Johnny B. Good. It's like, that's the way it is. Young people are the ones that come up with the ideas, and it's tough as a 33-year-old to say that because it kind of means my opportunities to be a creative juggernaut are probably just about spent at this point in my life. But, I think it just speaks to the youth they're always the ones that change the world, and that's especially true in music. And I think it's something like this album is exactly what you've said about it. It's somebody focusing not on what they think people want to hear, but what they want to say. And I think that's such a huge distinction with what makes something a good album versus a great album, or even could make it a bad album if they don't do that sort of thing. For me, this album was everything that Taylor Swift wants, everything that everybody wants Taylor Swift to be, and kind of who they hold her up as. Olivia Rodrigo accomplishes that in this album. It's that vulnerability, that kind of snark, the breakup songs. This album is all breakup songs.
Yeah.
It's a breakup album, but the way she does it is so much better than what a lot of people have done, because the feelings are much more raw. You don't get the sense that she's trying too hard to make all these weird metaphors and make all these clever things about the song. She's like, I just need to find a word that rhymes with disappointed. Oh, exploited. How do I make that work? But the way it comes across is that word we always love to use, authenticity.
Yes.
I believed every single bit of it. And I think that's the difference between someone like her and a lot of other artists, where it just doesn't land because you feel like they're trying to tell you what you want to hear versus what they want to say.
And that's why I think this is such an important album, is because it's proven that if you let the artist be the artist, it's a license to print money. Because as long as it catches on, if you as a producer take a hands off, and as a label, Like, I think she signed with Geffen. So if they came in and they were like, we're going to make you into the next pop sensation in the mold of Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera, like, which, like, with a Britney Spears or with Miley Cyrus for the early part of her career, it's like, hey, you were a young woman, and as soon as it's, like, just barely sketchy for us to do it, we're going to sexualize you heavily. And that's going to be a new phase for you. And it's all this stuff that's booked out for them, these planned reinventions in their sound. And, like, if you left Britney Spears to her own devices, was she going to become a really talented singer-songwriter? Who fucking knows? Miley Cyrus found her way off the hellhole path. And then you have Olivia Rodrigo, who at this young age, Billie Eilish at this young age, who no one has ever told them, no, you can't do that. They went out and did it, and they proved its viability. And I also think, like, it's exactly like you said, authenticity, our favorite dirty word. This doesn't sound like a little girl playing at being a mature woman. This is not her taking jump shots at adult themes that she has no context for and has never experienced. She went through all of this. You can tell by the quality of the fucking lyrics, the quality of the songwriting, the tasteful production choices. This is a slam dunkaroonie debut album, and it shattered records. It's
oh yeah.
This is gonna be a landmark album in terms of changing the paradigmatic thinking in the music industry, and in terms of, I think, what artists are going to do over their careers, because they're gonna go, it's whatever I want to do. It's like St. Vincent. Last time you and I did a show, I was like, everyone fucking hates her because she did like a super nostalgic sound instead of being future forward, but she did what she wanted to do. You have to go out on a limb, and I think Olivia Rodrigo did that.
Yeah, and I think it's, I don't know. I mean, I listened to this album like 6 times all the way through. I mean, I'm sure you were at least that many, if not more. And that doesn't happen. Like, I can't think of an album that we've done that I listened to that many times. You know, I did the episode with Tanner where I've listened to that Coheed album probably over 100 times, you know, all the way through, let alone how many times I've listened to like each individual song. But maybe with Thundercat, I mean, I listened to that like probably 4 times when we did that album. You know, Casey Musgrave's Golden Hour I've listened to a ton of times, but this one, at least, like, in general, I think is one of the best debut albums I've ever heard. But as far as the albums we've done for the show, like, this is the one that I've listened to the most. And so in that kind of sense, like, it might be the best album we've reviewed so far, you know, just because of the staying power. And like, these are themes that are not going to be like gone away.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, she makes some like kind of topical references, you know, about, you know, Instagram and stuff like that. You know, she mentions those sort of things, but, you know, I don't think it's in such a heavy-handed way that it's going to lose its credibility, you know, over time, that it's going to be like, oh, well, those things aren't relevant anymore, so neither is this music. I think the themes are such an important part of this album that you could throw whatever references you want. It's like Seinfeld. You know, it's going to be relevant no matter the time period, because they don't rely on anything as a kind of linchpin of the story other than the themes of the music in this case. You know, it's just a really, really well done album, the way that you can really put yourself there. You know, I'm in a perfectly happy, committed relationship. You know, been engaged for over a year now and been together with her over 3 years, you know, so it's, you know, to me, it's like, I've got no reason to relate to this stuff right now in my life, but it's such good music that you can't help but do it, but put yourself in those shoes, you know, and I think that's a really, really neat trick.
It is. And I love that her approach to it, again, staying true to herself, was this concept of sour and the emotions that are encapsulated in that, and how people stigmatize the angry young woman, or that she's whiny, or she's bitter, or she's just jealous, and she sounds like a fucking brat. And it's like, if a woman or a young girl expresses that amount of angst, people tend to like shut her down and go like, well, you're young, what do you know from suffering? And I liken it to, my sister was telling me a story about a friend of hers who is a 10 out of 10 beautiful individual, and that's only relevant to the story. But she's like super nice. She like volunteers for charity, And on top of it is just really gorgeous. And there are other women that just tear her the fuck down because she is a perfect 10. And there is still like this competitive negative reinforcement thing that's kind of been foisted on young women for as long since time immemorial. And Olivia Rodrigo here is like, well, let's just like take those things that we feel, the jealousy, the bitterness, the hurt, all of it, and just like wear it proudly and talk about it. And it's not negative. It shouldn't be stigmatized. I'm fucking butthurt, and I want to express that, and you have to fucking deal with it. And if you don't like it, don't listen. But I think anyone that's not listening to this because they're like, it's an 18-year-old girl, what, I can't possibly understand what that would have to offer me. It's like, well, why don't you cut your fucking nose off to spite your face while you're at it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, if that's going to be their argument, there's a lot of artists that they shouldn't be listening to.
Yeah.
That they probably do. You know, I think like the Sex Pistols, like whatever, name a genre of music. You know, it's like you got rock and roll. Okay, Jimi Hendrix was in his early 20s when he was making all that music. Led Zeppelin, all in their early and mid 20s when they really got big. You know, in the Beatles, early 20s. You know, so it's like you want to talk about if you don't listen to this because it's a young girl, like a teenage girl, like why do you listen to that stuff? You know, that's not much different. Can you relate to a 21-year-old guy better than an 18-year-old girl? Like, I don't think you really relate to either of them that well.
Yeah.
Or that stage in their life. So it's like, that's a very disingenuous argument. And I really, if someone doesn't like the music and like this style of music, fine. That's okay.
Sure.
Like if you don't like the album because you're just like, I don't like the music, fine. But if you say it because it's like, oh, I don't relate to her because of who made the music, you know, it's like, well, I think you're selling yourself a little short on something you really might like. Because this album was top to bottom a banger. Like 34 minutes long or something like that, so it's quick. But man, like top to bottom, it is a banger. I think we're going to get like probably a good 4 or 5 singles out of this one that get some heavy radio play. Do you want to just get right into it? Just start ripping through them?
Let's plunk in.
Okay. Yeah, so the first song on the album, and I think this was such a perfect first song for this album, because it's the only one really like it on the album, and it's called Brutal, and it's a punk song, like straight up a punk song. Like this is something that you hear like the Donnas play, you know, really that it's almost like kind of grungy as well. Like it's a really, really good song. Starts out with this little like violin type intro, so you're like, oh, okay, we're gonna ease into this one nice and slow, and then you hear her say, I want it to be like messy, and then it just starts this like a really kick-ass guitar riff, and it goes into a punk song. I mean, just all the teenage angst you would ever want. You know, it's almost like she does it on purpose, where it's like just so overtly angsty that I love it. I mean, the chorus is, all I did was try my best. This is the kind of thanks I get. Unrelentlessly upset. They say these are the golden years, but I wish that I could disappear. Ego crush is so severe. And then the music drops off, and she just like says in like spoken word, God, it's brutal out here. And it's just such a clever thing. It's so catchy too. Like the music, it's just a bop to start out the album. You're like, God damn, like this, after hearing Driver's License take over the world.
Yeah. And
then you hear her do this song, you're like, the range that she's capable of is immediately apparent with just those 2 songs.
She opened her mainstream pop album debut with a garage punk song. I mean, and the powers that be fought her on it. They're like, don't lead off with this. What the hell's the matter with you? And she almost was like, okay, whatever. But then she's like, no, I'm married to this setting the vibe, because it's literally in the first line of the first verse. I'm so insecure. I think that I'll die before I drink. She's literally, at the time of the writing, 17 years old, and being like, if I'm this stressed out right now, I won't make it to 21. There's no fucking way. This is dire. And like you said, it's an absolute fucking jam. And she's like, I'm going to set the stage. I want it to be messy. This is a messy opening to some messy themes. Heartbreak is not a clean subject matter. So I'm setting you up now. I am insecure, and that is where this is all coming from. I want you to know all the things that have hurt me. Strap the fuck in. This is what I got to say. The golden days are killing me. You're going to have to deal with it.
Yeah. And I mean, just to go back to more of the lyrics, I mean, it's just like, and not only is it a punk song, but you clearly can tell that she has an appreciation for that style of music, the way that she writes the songs, because she uses lyrics that are like very different than other lyrics that she uses throughout the rest of the album, but are very perfect for a punk song. Like, 'cause I love people I don't like, and I hate every song I write, and I'm not cool, and I'm not smart, and I can't even parallel park. You know, it's just, those are themes that it's like anybody of any age, like, I'm not cool and I'm not smart. Everybody, whether you're 33 like me, or 31 like you, or 18 like her, or 71 like my dad, like, everybody has those feelings. You know, I'm not cool and I'm not smart. And then she hammers down, she's like, I'm also a teenager, and these are the things I'm worried about. I can't even parallel park.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just such a funny little tossed off line that goes along with some like very serious themes. You know, the song is very upbeat, very punk, like very danceable. It's got that kind of like dance beat to it. But it's got these really like themes about depression and isolation and anxiety and all these very, very real things that you don't really expect an 18-year-old to have a good grasp on. But, you know, maybe she's had to just grow up pretty fast living in the world that she does and dealing with the things that she's dealt with and getting treated apparently how she's been treated, according to some of the songs on these albums, or on this album. And I think it's, you know, such a good start, because I think she gets out of the way early that she's like, I'm not just going to be a sad, sappy person throughout this album. You know, like, I'm also angry about this stuff. So I'm going to express all of the emotions that I have about this. Right now I'm pissed, and you're going to hear about it.
It's all under the umbrella of sour. And what I think is so great about this too is, like, you've either lived the experience in this song, which most of us have, or you're in the middle of it, or you're about to. And it is truly completely universal. There's no one, I don't think, that couldn't relate to this. So that goes back to our earlier point about, like, if you can listen to a rapper be like, I light cigars on fire with $100 bills, it's like, you've never fucking done that. You relate to that somehow. And again, if it's the music itself that does or doesn't trip your trigger, that's one thing. This idea of like, yeah, I can relate to a baller, but I can't relate to it. I was never an 18-year-old girl, so what does that have to offer me? It's like, yeah, but you were an 18-year-old, you know, person, and you experienced all of these same things. And I appreciate that, like, her version of punk was not to try to emulate an adult. It wasn't like, you know, I'm so fucking sad, and every relationship I've ever had is brutal and it's killing me. It's just the parallel park thing, like you said. It's so great. It's such a simple thing, but even that is a fucking calamity when you're that age. It's all very real. This misnomer that, like, teenagers don't have feelings, they have hormones. They don't go through this stuff. They don't think about it. It's like, no, it just took an Olivia Rodrigo to voice that for them. Like, that's all it was. That's all it needed, and this song is kind of that rallying cry.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. As she follows up, goes right back into, you know, I'm sure folks are familiar with Driver's License. If you're not familiar with Driver's License, go get familiar with Driver's License. You know, the song that basically took over the entire planet for a little while. The second song on the album, called Traitor. This one gets back into more of kind of what I expected out of her after hearing Driver's License, because I didn't listen to anything else she'd ever put out, because I think it was just all for the TV show she was on. I don't think she really released anything else. But Traitor is, you know, you hear it and you're like, okay, now we're getting into the angsty, like, sad, like, poor little me kind of thing. But no, there's still like that snark and that bite to it. There's still that kind of punk rock energy here. You know, she says, and ain't it funny how you said you were friends? Now it sure as hell don't look like it. You know, it's like she's got this, I don't want to speculate, you know, who she's talking about, but apparently it was a former co-star who started dating another person from another Disney show. And that's kind of as far as I want to get in the weeds on the actual gossip about, you know, kind of what is behind the album. But apparently there was very little time between when they had officially kind of called it quits and that other person she was the co-star with took up with this person from the other show. And such a short amount of time that you were like, well, you know, did that start fresh right after we broke up, or has this was there an overlap here? And, I think that's a question that if you've been in this situation, it sucks being the person that's kind of left behind when they move on to somebody else, because you're like, well, it's only been 2 weeks, as she said in this, like, can you develop feelings that fast, or were the feelings already there? And I think, again, that's one of those sort of mature things that Olivia Rodrigo talks about on this album, where it's not just, I'm pissed at you for this, like, how could you leave me for her, and that kind of thing. It's like going a little bit that next step deeper, and saying like, well, if we talked about how our feelings were that real and we were together for a while, and then all of a sudden you have these very real feelings for her, like, did you all of a sudden change how you approach dating, or are you the same person you were when you were with me, and you've developed these feelings previous to us ending, and the reason we ended was because you had these feelings. This wasn't just a fresh new start of something new. And it's just like that, constantly having to remind myself that it was an 18-year-old that wrote this stuff throughout this album. Not that I had to like say like, oh, don't like it so much, just you don't relate to it or anything. It's just like reminding myself how impressive it is that an 18-year-old was the one that did this album. Because these are themes that are like very relevant no matter your age. I mentioned Seinfeld earlier. Like, it's just very relevant no matter your age, because those situations are timeless. These feelings are timeless. And I think she does such a great job at not just being very topical with it, but talking about, kind of the deeper meaning behind the things and thinking to that next step. I think as an 18-year-old songwriter, it's a really, really impressive thing that she does.
Well, and for me, that maturity really checks in with the like granular details on this, because there's that line. What does it say? But you guess you didn't cheat, but you're still a traitor. And I keyed in on that, and it's like, okay, so up to this point in the verse and the pre-chorus and all that, talking about like, we have a deep emotional connection, and I knew you were talking to another girl. You said it was nothing. I didn't press it, and I went out on a limb, and I let you in, and I gave you space, and I tried to be cool, and I didn't want to lose you. So I kind of left the ball in your court and didn't ask too many questions. And you took my vulnerability and you threw it back in my fucking face when you started showing up places with her immediately after we broke up. So maybe you never physically cheated, but you did emotionally, which is way more fucking important to me at this point in my life. So you didn't cheat on me, but you're a fucking traitor because I put a lot of faith and trust in you, and you stabbed me in the fucking back. And I love that, because in the wrong hands, this could have been like some shitty Avril Lavigne song where it's like, I saw you in third period, you made out with her, and now I'm done with you, boy. It could have been that. And instead,
give Avril a little credit.
I fucking hate Avril Lavigne.
Damn.
I fucking hate Avril Lavigne. Always have. You can quote me.
Oh, I guess my suggestion for next week's album is out.
Does she really
kidding.
have something coming out?
No, she's dead.
Avril Lavigne?
Yeah, the one that you see is an imposter.
Oh, it's a fake Paul McCartney type thing. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That makes sense. So anyway, I don't know, just to put a button on my thoughts about Traitor, that's what I love about it, is it's not just a song about you cheated on me. It's you emotionally cheated on me, and that has way more of an impact on me because she's an empathetic, clearly highly intelligent, emotional girl, and the worst thing you could do is lead her on and gaslight her and publicly cuckquean her like that. Like, that shit ain't cool.
Yeah, and I think it's, I kind of mentioned this to Fiance of the Pod Marla. I'm like, imagine being the other 2 points of this love triangle when she just dropped an album like this. Like, what do you do? Like, there's no way you get, I guess you come out with like your own songs, like your own side of the story, but
which they did.
Yeah. Oh, really? Maybe we should look at that next week.
Well, okay. Like you, I don't want to contribute to a rumor mill because at this point, nothing has been confirmed outright by any of these people. But so it's at this point almost like, oh, the royal family killed Princess Di. It's like kind of a conspiracy with enough evidence, but no confirmation. So it sounds like, yes, Olivia Rodrigo was dating one of her co-stars, and he broke up with her for a different Disney Channel girl. But they both also released songs. I think he released one called Lies, 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 which was like downplaying the nature of their relationship. And then the girl released one called Skin, where she was basically saying, like, Olivia Rodrigo, you and I could have been friends, but you're a crazy bitch because you clearly called me out with that line about that blonde girl in your song. And, like, we could have been cool if you just kept my name out of your mouth. It's not like that spicy, but those are the overtones. Again, if this is even the case. You have to assume it is because, like, who else is a famous 18-year-old going to date? But again, it's all allegedly.
Well, okay. I guess, you know what? We're not going to get knee deep in the weeds here on this stuff. We're going to get ankle deep.
Not just knee deep. That's a great Parliament song.
So what I would question that other girl, and I don't know what her name is. I think she's the one that's on Girl Meets World, right? She plays the daughter on that show.
Sabrina Carpenter, I think is her name. Wow, I pulled that out of my ass.
Yeah. Yes. So she's clearly, well, I think what we all assume, she's the blonde girl that Olivia Rodrigo talks about in Driver's License, but she doesn't say anything bad about her.
No.
She goes, you're with that blonde girl who's everything I'm insecure about. She's saying that she's like got a lot of things I wish I had, one of which being the significant other, but I don't think she says anything like inherently bad about her.
No.
And I think that is another reason also why I like this album so much, because she doesn't seem like she's really punching down at people that don't deserve it. Like, the real vitriol that she has is for the people that have directly affected her, and I don't think she holds this other girl that responsible, or at least didn't when the songs were written for this album, but maybe now she does. Maybe this is going to be a little knockdown, drag out little feud. Or maybe they all just realize they can all make a lot of money from it, and they're all just going to play it up as much as they can, which I hope isn't the case. But, I think it's just, I don't know. I feel like it's a bad look when you don't really have something bad said about you, but you just you must have a guilty conscience, I guess is kind of what I'm getting at. It's like, you must really feel like you did something wrong if you're lashing back out at somebody that didn't really lash out at you in the first place. Like, they kind of mentioned you as a reason why they're upset, but it didn't strike me as like a shot,
Yeah, she didn't say like, fuck you, bitch. Like,
Yeah.
And it's something that Olivia Rodrigo addresses later in the album, is like, someone else's win is not my loss. And I try to pick out flaws in this other girl to make myself feel better, but it's not her fault. It's not, I shouldn't do that because she's nice enough. So if anything, she kind of gave a lot of leeway to the other woman, whoever she may be. And she definitely takes the guy to task, but she's extremely, like, measured and civil about it. Like, you're a damn sociopath is about as piquant as that one gets. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's, I don't know. I don't, this album is just really well constructed, the way she does it. So, like, if you're going to ever try to, like, come back at her with, like, a diss song or something like that, I just don't see where you have any room to do it. And if you're going to get really malicious and kind of in the mud about it, like it sounds like these other two people have done, I just feel like you're not going to really get her to, like, lower herself to that, because she's already sold more records than you're probably ever going to in your entire life combined between the two of them. So, I hope she doesn't stoop down to that level, because she probably doesn't need to at this point.
Can I give you some little factoids to support the idea of her success?
Sure. Do it.
She is the first artist in history to debut 2 singles in the top 10 of the Hot 100. Sour is the first album to spawn 2 #1 debuts on the chart. And she broke the global Spotify record for biggest opening week for an album by a female artist.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, just for context for everybody.
Yeah, she's like, I mean, this is not just like an under the radar, like, oh, I wish more people knew about this album kind of thing. Like, this is a, like, kind of world beating phenom kind of an album.
Yeah.
This is one that, like, comes along once in a while. I think Billie Eilish kind of got close to it. And I don't know if Billie Eilish's first album is at this level. It's still very, very good, but where we kind of held that up as like, holy shit, what a great debut album. Like, this is even better.
Yes.
And it's not like trying to take away from Billie Eilish's album, but it's just like this is that good, where I don't think there's really any flaws on this album. There's some songs that I didn't like as much as the rest of them, but they didn't fall in any sort of way where I'd skip them. Like, this album is a 100% a play all the way through from top to bottom every time I listen to it kind of album.
Yeah. We got Billy holding it down with the avant-garde, and then we've got Olivia Rodrigo doing just the really, like, I don't want to call it plain because it's not plain, but the very straightforward emotional content. Because the music, like, the production flourishes. She's not, like, doing a bunch of stuff. Some of the songs are just, like, finger picking and, like, totally acoustic, these, like, slow, intimate moments. The song we're about to talk about is one of those, like, more stripped back songs. One step forward, 3 steps back. That was one I reached out to you. I was like, Geoff, I have a dilemma. I got 2 songs because we each picked 3. I'm like, I don't really know what to do. And you were like, well, ¿por qué no las dos? And that's how we arrived here.
Yes. And I think it was such an easy thing. When you texted me, I was like, well, I was picking one of those songs anyway. So yeah, we're good to go. And, you know, 1 step forward, 3 steps back was not one that I was going to probably. I'm glad that you had brought this one up because I probably wouldn't have, but it's still one of the strongest songs on the album. And I think it's such a simple thing where it's like 1 step forward, 3 steps back. But the way the lyrics are so simple, but still so able to kind of convey a really strong emotion, you know, still convey exactly what she's trying to say. You know, I'm the love of your life until I make you mad. It's always 1 step forward and 3 steps back. Do you love me, want me, hate me? Boy, I don't understand. You know, and it's everybody's been there with confusion about, does this person really care about me? Is this going somewhere? Like, what do I do in this situation? Like, I don't know how to act. And it's such a relatable thing that doing it in some, you know, in such a simple way is a really smart move because it allows the most people to relate to it. And I think this song is such an excellent use of a really kind of universal feeling that we've all had.
Yeah, the inconsistent partner, the volatility of someone who makes it very tough for you to love them in the way that they need, and you kind of suffer for validation as a result. You feel like you're the fuck up because you can't really help them and you never know what you're going to get. Excuse me. And verse 2 for me is where, like, this, again, this very mature way of thinking about it crystallizes. And maybe in some masochistic way, I kind of find it all exciting. Like, which lover will I get today? Will you walk me to the door or send me home crying? And it's like, first of all, a teenager in a mainstream pop album using masochism, the concept of masochism. If the album were, or the label were more hands-on, they'd be like, no one's going to know what that is, kid. Take that out. Say he's a bad man. Say it makes you feel hurty inside. They'll get that. Like, again, the artist is not the one on trial here. But this idea of, like, you never know what you're going to get. This person is inconsistent. They've knocked you off your guard and not in a good way. And they're hurting you. Like, are you going to walk me to the door or send me home crying? Like, no relationship should make you feel that way. And yet somehow, instead of her just being like, you're a fucking asshole, fuck you, I hate you, which, like, may be a different teenager's assumption, is like, well, fuck you then. But she's like, no, I'm trying to understand this. I'm trying to understand, like, my role in it, because I'm just reacting to how goddamn mercurial you are. And it makes me feel really bad about myself, but I'm not just going to abandon you, which is why this whole journey is 1 step forward, 3 steps back, but we keep doing it. Incremental progress, if you want to call that, even though it's backwards progress.
Yeah. And it's just such a, I don't know, I think she's always just so self-aware throughout the whole album. Like, that's one of the big things, you know, it's that authenticity, you know, it's that self-awareness, you know, I think is why everything is so successful. You know, never doubted myself so much. Like, am I pretty? Am I fun, boy? I hate that I give you power over, that kind of stuff. You know, there's feelings where it's like, I wish we didn't feel that way. I wish we didn't let this person bring us down. You know, everybody's had that, whether it's a romantic relationship like this or a boss at work or something like that. It's like, you always question, why does this person get me to feel so bad about myself? Like, what did I do to deserve this situation? But then it's, do you have the strength to get yourself out of it, or is it something you're just going to keep, you know, participating in that cycle? And I think it's just such a, for an 18-year-old to explore these like very, very advanced like adult themes is very impressive. And to do it not in wondering what they are, like, oh, I wonder if I'll ever understand this stuff. It's like explaining it in a very relatable way while she's experiencing it, and I think that's something that any artist is going for, is to relate your experience to your audience. I think that's the goal of any art, is to make people connect with you and understand where you're coming from so that you can become part of this collective, so you can become part of the same, the same movement. And I think the fact that she's able to do that so well is why she's going to be so successful probably for years to come. If this is what she's capable of, if this is the level of songwriting that she's capable of and she's consistent with it, I don't see why we don't continue to get albums from her into her 40s. And if she's this mature already and able to recognize real themes and doesn't keep things only topical for late teens and early 20s people, I think she's going to go a really, really long way. And as long as she wants to continue to have success, she'll have it, if this is the stuff she's capable of doing.
Yeah, absolutely. This one, just a nice contemplative bedroom pop song. It feels like Private Thought time for, I almost called her Billie Eilish, for Olivia Rodrigo. I really liked it a lot.
Yeah. And it's like Regina Spektor or any of those kind of like weird, quirky piano girls. It's like that kind of level of like just catchy and kind of good songwriting. But I don't know. It's just got more of a gravity to it for some reason when Olivia Rodrigo does it. I don't know what it is, but it just seems less like a novelty and more like something real.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the next one, Deja Vu, was one on your list.
This might be my favorite one off of the album. I just love that, like, on its face, this could be a song about her just reminiscing about all the good times and a lost love. Again, it's the Hayley Williams thing where we didn't get a lot more. She was hurt so fucking bad that it kind of prevented her from thinking about it in different contexts. And that is something Olivia Rodrigo does really well. She's got angry songs. She's got really sad songs. She's got songs that vacillate between bitter and nostalgic. And Deja Vu is one of those. It's extremely nostalgic. Car rides to Malibu, strawberry ice cream, and we're little sweeties and we're sharing it with one spoon. Isn't that cute? Yeah. Like all the cute little things we did. I introduced you to Billy Joel because I've got great music taste, and it became like our little thing. And she's remembering all of that fondly, but then being like, so I know you're doing this with the new girl and passing all of this off as like your original thought. But I mean, that's pretty disingenuous. When are you going to let her know, man, that this is something you and your ex-girlfriend introduced you to Piano Fucking Man? Yep. You didn't just come up with this shit. You're getting all your moves from your ex. Obviously, you're never going to tell her that. So does this feel like deja vu? That's when it turns bitter. It's kind of like, oh, you must be experiencing intense deja vu right now, you fucking prick. And again, it's her civil way of saying it, like burning him, scorching him, ethering him by saying just like the bare minimum.
Yeah, and I really, that verse too, where she talks about Uptown Girl and, introducing him to that. And the line that really gets me, where I really, and it happens several times in the album, but where I really am like, wow, she just thinks on a different level. She just thinks on a level that I would assume most 18-year-olds don't think, or maybe they do. And I've just had 18-year-olds pegged wrong for a long time now. But she says, I hate to think that I was just your type. And she's not only, so she's talking about how this girl, like her very specific situation where he's probably doing the same things that he did with her, with his new girl, and trying to play it off as if it's a new thing. And that it's just like, that he's making a newer experience for her, a unique experience for her, but it's all stuff he's done before that he's just reusing. And the idea of that is bad enough, but then the idea of thinking like, oh, maybe, she's just going to be another me when you meet someone new after her. Like, this is not a permanent thing that you've gotten with her. Like, we're just your type. Like we're just numbers on a list, and I think it's, going from the perspective, the really close in perspective of her specific situation, and then kind of zooming out a little bit to like, oh, maybe this is just a pattern for this guy and we're both victims. It's not that this girl is doing this to me. She's just getting it done to her too. And I think that's such a clever little turn that she does as well, where it's not all about just talking shit about the other person and the other couple. It's like, well, maybe she's getting played too. And for an 18-year-old, again, I keep harping on that, like for an 18-year-old to make that jump is really, really impressive. Like, I don't know I feel bad for the things she's experienced in her life that she's had to develop this kind of emotional maturity, but, it certainly makes for a very compelling album.
Yeah, and it reminds me of Fiona Apple, Fetch the Bolt Cutters. Again, one of my favorites from, I know we covered it this year, but from last year. I can't remember which song it is, but it's about her confronting the woman that essentially replaced her and being like, I'm not here confronting you angrily. Because the person you're getting mad at probably shouldn't be, the alleged interloper. It's the person that made the decision to put her in that position and to hurt Fiona Apple, or in this case, Olivia Rodrigo. But that idea of like confronting that other person and be like, I see us as sisters in arms. I don't see you as the enemy. Because you're going to find out, unless you're the lucky one that changed him, in which case, good for you. Otherwise, you're going to find out in your own time that he's got a template for a dream girl, and it's plug and play. And I didn't realize it at the time, and you don't realize it now, and maybe you don't want to hear it, but it's kind of how this is. So no hard feelings, girl.
Yeah, and the song I think you're talking about is Rack of His.
Yes. Yep, that's the one.
Yeah. I had to look it up and figure it out for myself. I was like, I know exactly which one you're talking about. I could not remember the name of it. But it's I think a very apt comparison, comparing this to Fiona Apple. I think this is much more straightforward, like 95 miles an hour down the middle, like kind of pop music, and I think, I think Fiona Apple definitely gets a lot weirder, but I think the talent and the emotional maturity and vulnerability is all there. And I think aiming the anger at the right place is, they do the same thing. And Fiona Apple's in her 40s and Olivia Rodrigo's 18. So, it also makes me think about like, well, how much does the world suck for women that they're able to figure this stuff out at such a more advanced level than we do? And it's because we're, men in general, the royal we are the ones that put them through this stuff that they're forced to have this emotional maturity, and I think it's, it kind of makes me feel bad that I was like, did I ever treat anybody like this when I was like 19, 20 years old? And, I probably did. But it's like, I'm glad it wasn't Olivia Rodrigo and I didn't have like one of the year's best albums written about me. I guess I could just kind of count myself lucky that way.
It's like in How I Met Your Mother when Ted goes to see the movie and it's all based on him being the villain.
Yes.
The Wedding Bride, wasn't that what it's called?
Yes. Yeah, one of the few fond memories I have of that show.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a disappointment.
Dark hole. Fuck that.
Yeah. Yeah, we certainly don't need to do that. But the next song that was chosen, Good for You. And this is apparently the third single, so we'll see how well this one does. But it's just like a yeah.
Sorry, not to cut you off, but I think this debuted at number 1 when it came out. I'm pretty sure.
Oh, well, imagine that. Yeah, I mean, it's just like, I don't know, to have an album full of this many just like good songs, and I guess it's easier to do when you only have a 34-minute album, but I think that's almost more impressive, where it's like you can put out a 34-minute album because you're like, yeah, all of these are bangers. I don't need to put anything more on here. It's just like you're running through, and I think we've picked I think it was like the 6 songs in a row that were our ones that we picked. Just about.
Yeah, I think enough.
I think we might have skipped like one.
Yeah, Enough is between, I think, the first 2 and Deja Vu, but I don't know. I have to. Yeah. Don't quote me on that.
So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that this album is stacked.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Stacked with hits. And this being one of them, clearly debuted at number 1. And, I think it's just, unbelievable. I don't know how much influence the record label had on this versus like that this is all stuff that she came up with and did on her own. But it really doesn't matter to me because I don't know many other 18-year-olds that had this sort of debut, and like you're this deep into the album and it's still hitting.
Yeah, it just keeps coming like a fucking freight train. This is just like I love a good pop punk song. There's some bad pop punk out there, but a good one just hits like cool lemonade on a hot summer day. And
yes.
this has so much energy. I was listening to this in the car on the way over to Tanner's, and I'm just punching the roof of my car, bouncing out of my fucking seat, almost swerving into the other fucking lane, just going nuts. For context, this was the big hit down in North Carolina when I was down there with my sister and her friends.
Okay.
This song got played like every hour on the hour. Someone would just look and pick up their phone and click, and this would start, and everybody went fucking nuts. And the line, like a damn sociopath, everybody just popped. They went right off. And it's that kind of infectious, and a word I haven't used in a long time, anthemic song about like basically you stuck by someone through some bad times, you helped them out of a bad way, and as soon as they were fixed, they were like, well, see ya. And this whole song is like, hey, good for you. You got better. You're in a great place. You're seeing a nice girl. That's awesome. Me, not doing so great. Happy for you, though, bud.
Yeah. And which says, I guess that therapist I found for you, she really helped. Now you can be a better man for your brand new girl. Like, damn.
Dagger.
Yeah. Put the knives down, Olivia. Put the knives down. Because this song, I mean, it's a bop. First of all, I mean, just like Brutal was a bop. Like the first thing you notice about it is like, oh, this song is a lot of fucking fun to listen to. And then you listen to the lyrics and you're like, damn, this is probably like the biggest kind of diss track that she has on the album. This is where she cuts the deepest. And again, it's like, I can't imagine being that couple. Like, what else do you talk about than the fact that this girl made like a world record shattering album about the two of you? Like, do you just pretend to ignore it? Like, how do you ignore it?
I think you change your names and identities and you move to New Zealand and you raise sheep. I think that's the only thing left for you at that point.
I mean, I would love to see them both come out with an album as like a response and think it's just as good. And then have Olivia Rodrigo be like, oh, I was waiting for that. I actually have another album ready to go. I hope it happens.
Yeah, I mean, again, she's so mature that it would suck to see her down in the mud. But if they drag her there, I have no doubt that baby girl is going to come out swinging. And she swings some considerable lumber these days, so they should behave themselves.
Yeah, see, I don't have any issue with her getting down in the mud. I would relish that. I love it. I thrive on drama.
You're such a messy bitch, Geoff.
I know. I guess other people's drama, not really my. I hate having my own.
Yeah, wow.
So I avoid my own as much as I can. But I'm a nosy bitch, so I do appreciate it when I get an opportunity to dig into something like this.
And it does. This song does a good job of kind of making you feel like you're party to one, like a public fight, and you're just like, oh shit. It just kind of gives you that like, oh my god, they're arguing in public. This is about to go off. Yeah, and you don't have to be involved in it. It's just a very exciting thing to watch. A real quick thing. So when I was talking about the people from North Carolina, my sister and her friends, we're out on the boat. Have you ever heard the song "Raise Up" by P.D. Pablo? Oh yeah. Wrap your shirt around your hand, wave it above your head like a helicopter. That whole thing. Oh yeah. That apparently. Who am I? P.D. Pab, motherfucker. If you play that in North Carolina, it's like MK Ultra. They all stop what they're doing, drop their glasses, and just fists in the air. It's like Aussie, Aussie, Aussie for football hooligans. Like, it was fucking unreal. We're out on the boat, and that song comes on, and my sister and I, obviously from the North, her friend Bridget, obviously from the North, everybody else, without fail, they just start screaming the lyrics. People driving by on other boats heard it and were fist pumping to it. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Yeah.
Yeah, that song fucks.
I guess so.
Yeah. I do enjoy Petey Pablo. He was pretty heavy on the soundtracks for the first couple Fast and the Furious movies, so you know. And I think that song was on one of the Fast and Furious soundtracks. I want to say Too Fast, Too Furious.
Could have been. I didn't recognize it at all.
So.
But I'll never forget it now.
Yeah. North Carolina, come on and raise up. Take your shirt off. Twist it around your head just like a helicopter. Yeah.
Just picturing like a morbidly obese guy doing that and just having the time of his life.
I'm familiar. And he was Petey Pablo was also in Drumline.
Was he?
Made a special guest appearance.
No shit. I learned a lot
for
today.
the rival school. I think he came out and like performed with them.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I learned a lot today.
I mean that's the extent of my Petey Pablo knowledge. Also had a big hit with Freak Leak.
Oh yeah,
that
of
song
course.
was that music video was somewhat life-changing for me. Came at the right time, I suppose, in my life.
Well, yeah, there's many ways that can be interpreted. And, you know, you certainly don't play that one at Sunday school. I'll tell you that much, Geoff. Don't make no mistake.
Nope. Definitely not that music video either.
Yeah.
But I suggest you look it up because it is a great music video. And moving on to Happier, another song from this album. And this one is a little bit more of a ballad than the previous one we discussed. But that doesn't take away the power that this one has. It is a really, really excellent song. And I think maybe one of the ones that's going to have like the real like lasting power. You know, when you look back at this album, like look back at a deep cut, you know, this is one that I think is going to have like real lasting influence for her.
She's exposed here. And I don't mean exposed like her talent or lack thereof has been exposed. Yeah. I mean like she's a raw nerve here. This is another one of those quiet, contemplative bedroom songs. And she's deeply hurt. And she doesn't necessarily wish this new girl or even this guy like that much ill will, but she's looking for answers. She's trying to justify her anger and her hurt. And this is another song that vacillates between sadness and intense anger. And she ultimately decides all she wants is to have mattered. She can't bear the thought that she was just our relationship, one of many, one along the road, and that none of this mattered. She needs to matter. And that's why this is such a like vulnerable, stripped back song. The emotion in her voice. Again, I'm a big fan of people who can create characterization with their voices. And it's just like you just want to wrap her in a blanket and give her a hot tea when you hear this song. Like it's heartrending. It's an adult woman who has been spurned in the worst way. I mean, it's incredible. Her spirit is from like light years ahead of where she should be.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just like, she's like, so find someone great, but don't find no one better. She like wants them to be happy. You know, clearly she cares about them, but it's like, please don't find something that makes you so happy that it makes me feel like I never mattered. So, you know, it's just like, it's a very, very raw, emotional song, you know, and I think it's one that you can't listen to and not feel some sort of sympathy for her situation. Cause it's like, we are only, and to be fair, we're really only getting one side of the story with how all this went down, you know, and whether it was a really serious relationship or whether he was honest, you know, we're only really getting her side of the story. It's a very believable side of the story. So I tend to believe what she says about it, but you know, it really is a very kind of heart-wrenching album to listen to. And especially when you get to this song, because all you can feel like she was very angry, you know, being like, oh, I'm good enough. Like, I don't need your validation and all this. But then eventually you get to the point where it's like, she can't help but have those feelings of not being enough, you know, just like all the rest of us. Like it can only last so long where you have all this confidence. It can only last so long before you're forced to face the things that really make you upset. And it's just really interesting how she kind of sequences the album, because it all has the same subject matter. You know, it's all the same theme. It's all about breakups. Like the whole thing is a breakup album, but the different emotions that she's able to go through within that framework is a really impressive thing, because you have your brutal and then you have happier, and they're two completely opposite ends of the spectrum while being on the same subject matter. And I really think it's impressive that she was able to do that.
Again, it's looking at one incident through multiple contexts, and I love that she chose to work this one out. Again, it feels like a very private moment, and it's just this simple piano modulation, just bum 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 bum, just like these very simple little modulations into a different key, and it just keeps going, and it's really just her driving it. Everything else is just supporting her, and it just starts gushing out of her like a cry. It just starts off very soft, and she just works herself into a lather and gets more and more upset. And she's got such a beautiful voice. It is so clear. It is so precise. She can hit high notes and just has this brassy clarion call sound. It's a beautiful voice. It's only going to get better. And she doesn't like overdo crazy high notes and stuff. She's usually right in the pocket. But like in Driver's License, when she does the high "When I'm Gone," and she's just shouting, "You didn't mean what you wrote in that song about me." When she decides to open up on those moments, it's just so sweet. And I appreciate this song a lot. It's one of those like thank you for sharing kind of moments. And it's like we can all kind of learn a lot from how candid she is in this song. This breaks my fucking heart. And do you tell her she's the most beautiful girl you've ever seen? An eternal love bullshit you know you'll never mean. Remember when I believed you meant it when you said it first to me? And now I'm picking her apart, like cutting her down will make you miss my wretched heart. But she's beautiful, and she looks kind, and she probably gives you butterflies. And it's just like, you want to be mad at this girl, but it's not her fault, and there's nothing to pick apart. And I want to be mad at you, and I am mad at you, but this is all out of my control.
Yeah.
And again, that's a lot for a 17-year-old girl, 18-year-old girl to just put out there. And I just fucking love it. I fucking love this song.
Yeah. It is just impressive. So we are getting right up against it time-wise here. I feel like we have mentioned the song on this album, the one that took over the planet and launched her immediately overnight into being a pop superstar, is Driver's License. And we don't have to spend a ton of time talking about this one. In fact, people, you can reference, and I forget what episode it was, but it was somewhat recently, within the last 2 months, I think, that we talked about the single Driver's License because it had been released, and us talking about how excited we were to see what Olivia Rodrigo could do with a full album, because that one song was so impressive. Now, I will say I was not that confident that she could create a whole album as good as Driver's License, because I was like, that's, it seemed like to me a once in a lifetime kind of pop song. Like, you catch that lightning in a bottle, like you better keep the lid on tight, because that's not going to happen again. But this album is so impressive, and I think Driver's License is still the best song on there. Not my favorite one. I think Brutal is my favorite one on there. But I think as far as like your pure pop music, your songwriting technique and the emotions that you convey, I think this song is, when you boil it down to the scientific elements, this is the best song on the album. And it doesn't take away from the other ones, because I think the other ones, all in their own way, stand up and stand out just as much as Driver's License does. It's just that this one specifically, I think, is constructed in a way that it is the premier pop song on this album.
Well, and like you, I had certain reservations where I was like, I'm excited to see what she can do, but was this lightning in a bottle, right? And Deja Vu came out, and I was like, oh, fuck yeah. I didn't really like it that much the first time I listened to it. I don't know if it was just my frame of mind, but I was like, I complimented how she's got a really nice voice when we talked about Driver's License, the single, and I'm like, I just want to see her like use that more and open up. And she's kind of doing the opposite with Deja Vu, and she's like being very gentle, because it's that kind of song. Even when it opens up, she doesn't really go much louder than like the whispers and the falsetto.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know, man. But the more I listened to it, I'm like, no, this song also fucks. Then I heard Good For You, and I heard Good For You 1,000 times down in North Carolina.
Yeah.
Shout out to the boat crew. And it's just, you realize, you're like, my God, there's not a fucking clunker to be heard. This just whole thing is top to bottom. It's so tight. And I will pause it to wrap things up. So first of all, stream this. What are you fucking waiting for?
Oh, yeah. Stream it.
Second of all,
6 times like me.
yeah, in a row. Come on. Should
Yeah.
get 75 cents for that. I think about it and I'm like, man, I would really I love Olivia Rodrigo. She's fucking great. But I'm like, I don't think I could ever go to one of her concerts because I'd look like such a creepazoid. I want to go for the music. I want to go because I love this music. But no one's going to believe that 31-year-old fucking fat guy is going to be at a concert headbanging to this, and they're going to be like, yeah, no, that's all he's here to do. It's like, no, really, I am. I just love the music.
You just got to find a nice lady to go with, and I think that makes it a date night, which means you're not there just for Olivia Rodrigo.
That's a good point. That's a really good point. And just act like I hate it the whole time.
Yeah, just have Tanner put on a wig or something like that.
I should be so lucky.
Yeah. He would make a pretty lady.
He would make a beautiful lady.
Yeah. A beautiful woman.
True. Very correct.
Yeah.
With just the most luxurious belly hair you could get lost in.
Oh boy. Well, I think that about does it for this week. So absolutely, I mean, stream it. I cannot give a strong enough recommendation for this album, Sour by Olivia Rodrigo, because it is, I think for me, it probably is album of the year, and I don't know necessarily if it's going to be my personal favorite one. If Coheed and Cambria releases one, that'll probably be it. But I certainly am not going to make the argument that there's going to be any album other than this one that has all of the elements, the great songwriting, the catchy songwriting, and the success. I think those, because for album of the year, you kind of have to take those 3 things in hand. Like, it can't just be super popular with no substance. Like, it has to have some of everything. And I think this album has whatever metric you want to measure it by, it measures up against anything else. And therefore, to me, so far, it is the album of the year.
Sour is the total package, and you can print that.
Yeah. Put it in the headlines, put it in the books. Find us on Instagram, @Out on That Line. You can find us on Twitter, @Out on That Line 1. Send us some DMs with some stuff you want to hear. We got some things kind of coming down the pipeline. There's some albums coming out this summer that we're pretty excited about, but we've got room for your suggestions. So let us know what you want to listen to, and you find us wherever you're listening right now, plus a whole bunch of other places. You'll find us on YouTube. If you search #Out on That Line, you'll find all of our singles videos uploaded every Thursday. And you'll find all of our episodes on there as well, our regular podcast episodes. We translate all of those to YouTube. So if that's your preferred service, you can get everything that we've ever created right there on YouTube. So let us know what you want to hear. Alex, do you have anything else this week?
Good night, and have a pleasant tomorrow.
Until next time.